Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show, you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? Let us know in the comments and we'll answer your questions, just like we're doing right now with me and the big kahuna, Scott Ostrander, king of Nectar for the Gods. What do you got there?
Resin sleeves.
Well, what are those for?
You know how many people are allergic to the trichomes on their plants?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
None, I assume.
Pig farmer is like, man, I can't.
Can't do it, huh?
They break out.
Huh.
And so these are worn now. So many guys are wearing them so they can reach in their plants. They have their gloves on, their hands on their stuff, and then the resin sticks here, and then you just pull it off and clean it.
All right, that's pretty impressive. Pretty
Not
cool.
bad.
Where do you get those?
OCGFAM.com.
Nice!
And some local stores possibly.
Yeah.
If they order direct, they can get these from us. But
Yeah.
yeah, we picked some up. So far, they've been good feedback. I'm pretty impressed.
Cool.
That and, you know, they're selling the muzzles there too.
Oh, yeah?
This is
Nice.
supposed to be
This will save you from the COVID.
like the... Yep, it will. It's supposed to be like that.
Oh, what's that?
So you wear it around your neck.
Oh, I gotcha.
So it's supposed to be like this all the time, but, you know,
And you can just pull it on up.
when you pull this up like that, you look like a 70s porn star. And that's not good. So I'm going to stay away from the 70s. I
Alright.
found mine. So it's just this.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
You look good in that.
Yeah. Keep it in my pocket until they tell me to wear it.
Well, that's not unreasonable.
No.
Not unreasonable.
No.
Carlos Barrios. Hey, Bob. Great show. Hey, Bob. Great show. Guess you're not doing so good. Hey, did you get your tags? Is that for your car? You finally got your plate?
Nope. Nope.
No plates. DMV's not working so much. I've been watching your videos to absorb the information of many issues people come across and tips and tricks you guys inform us to make it easier using Nectar for the Gods. I use ProMix, and I want to ask you if there is any issues using Nectar for the Gods with a pH of 6.3 to 6.6 when ProMix is best at 5.5 to 6.0. Considering it's a soilless media, should I use the email to Big Kahuna? I know he's busy, so I decided to ask in the comments. First, thanks for the show. Keep up the good work and stay safe.
Why ProMix is best at 5.5 to
This is like the old Coco Coir
Yeah.
thing where people do it. Yeah,
Don't
no.
worry about the medium anymore.
No.
The medium isn't the game changer. It's the nutrients you're using. So if you're running house and garden with ProMix, yeah, 5.5 to 6.0. That's where their nutrition's available.
It's about the nutrients, not about the soil.
Actually, with that pH in the starting of ProMix being more acidic, being peat-based, and with less buffering, you're going to need to jack the pH up in your ProMix to make sure that Nectar works better for you.
So what would you do there? Would you put some
Limestone.
limestone in? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long would it take that to get going? I mean, if you put some limestone in soil, it's
So many variables. That comes down to the alkalinity conversations of pH of your water, the pH of the soil, the hydration levels, how aggressive are you feeding? You know, basically for that one you'd be at like a cup to 2 cups of CalPro limestone per 10 gallons, and it'll probably last you the whole season and keep you in that 6.4 range.
So if I have my soil and I put the limestone into it and just have it sitting there, does it ever do anything, or is it when the plants start working in there that it actually brings the pH up?
Well, limestone itself is a carbonate, and it doesn't convert to anything. It stays as a mineral until it converts into a bicarbonate, and the only way it does that is through acidic reaction or like carbonic acid. So once the acids hit it, it hydrolyzes the rock, the limestone, converts the carbonate into a bicarbonate, and then that's what's available to the plant.
Okay. And is that through the function of the plant being in there in the soil and it doing its thing and the microbes and all that stuff? So nothing happens till you get it rolling.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 6.9 water, your pH of your soil 6.5, and you have a bunch of calcium carbonate in the soil, it's inert until you make it available. Now, if you have micronal limestone, which is just super fine powdered limestone, there'll be a pH correction. I mean, it'll start rising up on you because it's more of a soluble, because it's so finely ground that you're solubilizing some of that pH in the limestone. But when you're CalPro is much more of a grind, so it's more of a grit type calcium carbonate. That has to be reacted with some form of carbonic acid, phosphoric acid, citric acid, something in a low 6 pH will convert that over to a carbonate. Now, if he built this all up and his pH is 6.4 and his water is still RO or distilled, and he's watering his plants regularly, it strips that carbonate out of that soil, so that easily could get back into the mid-5s, mid-bloom, if you're not staying on top of keeping the Calprol or the limestone built into your soil. Most of these guys, Pro Mix, Sunshine, they put in calcium carbonate as a buffer, but honestly, in my opinion, often not enough. I mean, you still are going to see the acidic drift if your water's a destructured water.
So you're doing slurry tests, you're seeing your pH dropping off, you just put some limestone in there. Is that the solution, or is that...
That's a solution for many. Yeah, that, and then look at your water source and figure out that piece.
So that you're not using the water to make it worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's not just about the pH in the water, it's about the alkalinity in the water and all that.
All of it.
Yeah. So if that's not too far messed up with the water, if the water's not like you perfectly like it, but it's not the greatest, other than going into that whole ball of wax with that, would it be easier just to limestone that up? If that...
Oh yeah, I mean, that's it, is that finding a calcium carbonate that's not dolomitic lime or gypsum lime. I mean, we don't want to add all these other elements to this calcium or this alkalinity piece. So just correcting and having available calcium carbonate for the plants to access through the conversion of carbonate to bicarbonate, I mean...
Okay.
It's going to be your cheapest way to fix an issue and prevent the issue if you're not building calcite filters, you're not building a CO2 reactor, you're not building all the things that make your water more alkaline, and just want to run RO or distilled water, then building your soil up to accept that and putting the carbonate in the soil for those lower pH water sources to access, then you can maintain your pH that way.
Okay. So what if I'm like, okay, my water's got some pH issues, and I do some down to react my water, bring my water down, and then put a bunch of pH up in there more than I might normally. Is that the same or a better or worse solution than just throwing some limestone in the soil?
I would use that more of I need to correct something quickly, and my issue is I put this limestone in, and it's going to take 10 waterings before it's going to convert over efficiently. So now what I want to do is jack up to 8 of the Olympus, because Olympus up is liquid limestone.
It's a solution
of limestone.
Yeah,
and
but you want to...
But you have to convert it, because when you put it in, if you start with nutrients at 5.5, which is not uncommon with our nutrients, put it all in, you put this 13 calcium carbonate in on top of that for a pH adjuster, a lot of that carbonate converts over to a bicarbonate and builds alkalinity into the water.
Right.
While correcting your pH. Yeah. So a lot of people that have really bad pH in their soil and they're trying to fix that quicker, that's where that carbonated water aspect.
Okay.
And the reason why that's so exciting is it's cheap to make, it's easy to buy, and more importantly, if you're up at an 8 with our limestone and Olympus up, adding phosphoric acid to drop it back down just adds a lot more phosphates. And we're not trying to promote the phosphate uptake, we're trying to get the alkalinity built. So to bring that 8 pH back down to 6.4, if you did it with carbonic acid, which is a super gentle, super unstable acid. I mean, phosphoric acid is a stable acid. You bring something down, it'll hold it there.
Yeah.
Carbonic acid will bring it down, but anything will react to it and it'll bring it back up.
So how do I get carbonic acid? That's the carbonated water?
Carbonated water.
Okay.
So it's rainwater's carbonic acid.
Okay.
Because it's falling through and CO2 is being lifted up and it's falling through the oxygen, it's carbonating the water, but it's not sparkling, it's just creating carbonic acid in the water. That's why rainwater dissolves limestone so well, is because that pH of rainwater should be anywhere from 5.5 to 6.1. It should be on the acidic side. As it passes over limestone, it rebuilds its alkalinity back in, and then you have pH neutral water. So like Mackenzie water here in Oregon. Rain falls down, it goes through a limestone bed and a calcite bed, converting that 5.5 to 6.0 water. As it gets through into the aquifer, it's back at 8.0 because it's leachated through all of those limestone beds, creating that acidic, or the dissolving or hydrolyzing of the limestone, which then converts that into pure alkalinity in the water. Okay.
So if I'm trying to do what you're talking about, what's the functional thing of that? Do I pour a little bit of carbonated water in with my mixture? Do I do it after? How does it just...
So mix all your foods.
Okay.
You have 5.
Yeah.
With Olympus up, go to 8.
Okay.
Then with carbonated water, bring it back down to 6.4.
I got 3 or 4 gallons of feed water. How much carbonated water did I put in there?
Well, I mean, there's 1,000 variables to that, so I don't know how much food.
An ounce isn't going to work, and 10 gallons won't help anymore. Right? I mean, it's like 1 mile or something.
It just comes. No, I mean, I got guys who can take 10 gallons from 8 to 6.4 with 16 ounces of carbonated water, which costs them 80 cents.
So,
But I've got guys who are like, I need a half a gallon to get my 2 gallons down. It's like, well, then there's something else in your water that's reacting to this carbonation that's not doing the job.
Okay, so when I pour, I was at 5, now I'm at 8, and now I pour that in and I get to 6.5. That's what we're doing. And I'm using my
You're still pH metering, yeah. You're not just going, there's no magic number. Just like Olympus Up doesn't take every grow 5.6 to 6.4. Some people it's a tablespoon, some people it's a teaspoon.
Okay.
So same thing with the carbonic, is that there's no, you just pour it in like it's a pH down. So buy Perrier water, and just write pH down on it. Then mix up your nutrients, go higher than you normally would, and then bring it back down with that's adding the carbonic acid.
Okay.
And it's reacting all that alkalinity, or it's reacting the carbonates and converting all of them into bicarbonates out of the Olympus Up. So you're taking a lot of limestone and converting it like that, so you can easily get to 90 to 120 parts per million of alkalinity. But it's something, if you've got a commercial grow with 40 lights or 100 lights or 1,000 lights, you're not doing it that way. It's way more efficient to have an RO system, breaking your water down to the mid 5s, low 6s, or if you can't because your alkalinity or your pH is so high going through the RO, then you're going to want to react it with CO2, that CO2 reactor system that reef systems would have.
Sure.
That brings your water to 6.4 through carbonic acid. Then that passes over the calcite. That rebuilds the alkalinity back into the water. Then you mix in the nutrients and pH adjust one more time. But that would be for a commercial.
I got you.
Yeah.
For just Joe 4 plant,
carbonated water.
A little high and then drop it back down.
Yep. Or soon we'll have that pack, but we'll discuss that down the show.
And in carbonated water, I mean, is club soda the same as Perrier? Is the same as obviously
for the most part, but there's different strengths. Go to Goodwill or St. Vinny's and get yourself a soda machine.
Oh, okay.
Because then you buy a CO2 canister and you pump it in yourself, and you can it's basically injecting so much CO2 into a bottle of water and pressurizing it to where it won't take any more. Then you're going to have to use very little. But if you just go out and buy, Fred Meyer's cheap 80-cent stuff, it might take a lot more because it's going to have less carbonation.
Well, I used to have those things at the bar where they put the little cartridge in there, and it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would work, right? I mean, that's the idea.
That's the most expensive way to do it.
Yeah, I got it.
The little one, and then you go to the bigger one for the SodaStream, second most expensive. A lot of guys will just react a CO2 tank through a chamber, and just the aerating out a water source with CO2 will convert the carbonation.
Okay, good answer. Yes, I think.
I don't know.
It was a good answer. I don't know if it was a good question.
A lot of thinking questions after this one.
Yeah.
What? Will be the common one.
Alex N. Hey, Bob. I love watching your daily shows. Your daily shows. It's me, not you.
So when I stop paying for them, then what happens to those daily shows of yours?
I don't think I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, it's odd. So I hope you like cars, because the day these chicks stop flowing, his show will be about waxing your car.
The reason I was saying that was not to be stuck up, but to be joking about it, because I don't know anything about this, and it's all you and your information that makes the show. I'm just
saying. Good
saying.
job at cutting and pasting and having an intro about it.
Yep.
You're really good at editing.
I give context.
Your simplicity of editing is phenomenal.
I'm sure you've heard this enough.
And I don't look at it that way, just so you know. I find way greater value than Bob took last week's fucking Q&A and split it up into 20 shows.
Well, I think my value is being dumb, actually, of trying to I try to understand what you're saying.
Your value is that I don't just go, let me sit here, because so many people during my day, I'm like, what would really make this day better is if your face was on the back of your head.
There's a beak, and it's like, we have to pull it back around and talk. Have you seen The Dictator? It's a Borat guy. It's that guy, but he does the movie where he's a dictator, this whole thing. And he has this, he goes in there to see his rocket, and it's nuclear Nadal. And he goes, and the rocket's rounded on the top. He's like, no, we can't have that. It's got to be pointy to be scary. It's not scary. And they argue back and forth about it. And he's talking about, have you consulted Professor Bye-Bye? He's like, I think you mean Popeye. He's like, no, Bye-Bye. And he's like, who is this man? He's like, he has very large forearms out of proportion with his body.
One.
He was like, now I'm certain that you're watching a cartoon for your information. And Popeye, is not a scientist. He is, as the song says, a sailor man.
I haven't seen it.
You gotta watch it.
All right.
Not relevant to this conversation, though. Not relevant in any way.
That's what brings Bobisms to the show.
It gives us a little...
Well, you know, if we ever stop cutting those checks, we can do a whole show on movie excerpts just from these.
That's not bad. I can just take little pieces out of there. Here's what you're talking about.
This week on the 80s movies.
Scott's no longer with us, but here's some dumb shit I said to him.
That could be a whole show.
Oh, jeez.
You might want to start videotaping our pre's and our posts. I mean, that would be far greater.
Oh, see, you know, because I think a lot of what I do then, when those pre ones, is just wind you up.
Yeah, no, those wouldn't be good. Those would be a whole different... We'd have a different following.
I just like disagreeing with people. That's really my thing.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Hey, Bob, I love watching your daily shows. I'm sure, you know, when I
have dinner with him.
When I read it again, I think he's talking about both of us. I really don't think it's just about me.
No, I get it all the time. People thank OCG for you. Tell Bob it's his thing. Bob doesn't work here. I don't think you understand.
Fuck that asshole!
Yeah. You mean this piece of shit? Yeah. You know why my husband still deals with him?
Oh, Jesus Christ. This is a great show.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
Maybe if we do this, then they know, go ahead and unmute it. We're back to a question.
I'm not sure we're back to a question yet. Hey, Bob, I love watching your daily shows. I'm sure you've heard that. That's alliteration.
We should do this drunk a couple times.
That's
and see
a
what
great
happens.
idea.
Oh my gosh.
Or just not have the questions and just toss this.
Well, we need something to get us going.
Some sort of framework.
Remember Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Yes, and they're just talking.
I could do that show. I'd be good at that.
Yeah.
Like
I would love that.
but it couldn't be on a regular. It would have to be on like adult channel.
Yeah, no, because those movies are dumb. Like I couldn't watch a whole movie.
Well, I could watch the movies, but my mouth would be
okay.
It'd be edited the whole time.
I've got an idea. This is a show. Some of you should do this. This is a show. Mystery Theater Science 3000. But on odd days, we watch CNN. And on even days, we watch Fox News.
They're the same.
Well, okay. Okay, so we watch the news and do Mystery Science, and we just shit on the news.
But I'd
Bob has got shit on the news
again. That's not going to work out. That makes Scott mad.
I'm not sure that's not a,
That's not who I am. I don't want, you know me as that, but that's not who I want to be known as.
Well, no, I get you. Well, I don't think you're angry.
I'd rather go do dog shows and cat shows.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Or if I just want everyone to stop liking me, I'll do people shows. And
see, now that's a show someone should do, is just they go out and meet dogs.
You know, I told my kid, it's like, you know what I need to do is make an Instagram of dogs pooping. Just their faces and their postures and all the things. Look it up. There's a dog pooping calendar now, and the guy's crushing it. Is it just a dog pooping on the beach, a dog pooping on the lawn? But they're like all the different styles of pooping. It's like, that's brilliant. And he's making a ton of money on it.
You know, Willie started trying to bury it in the last 6 months. I don't know why. He never did it before.
You're not feeding him enough.
Really?
Saving it later. All right, let's get back to the question shows. We're not even on number 2.
Hey, Bob, I love watching your daily shows.
Do we? Because this is the third time that you've
But I'd love
this.
to hear more updates on the alkalinity issue. Now, let's just stop here for a second. We should go through all the alkalinity, but I think also I want to ask you if we're losing the track here, but we need to be doing some more basic stuff too for some people that are new to the channel. But also, we've done a lot of alkalinity with the tips and tricks of it, but we never had the basis. Like, a long time ago, I did the videos like, every step to do it with no step missed of just pouring in the jug and mixing it up. I think we need some sort of all-encompassing thing coming up sometime soon.
No, we should. We should do an alkalinity show that we actually
go through it.
Think it through.
Yeah.
And not just, here's a bunch of questions, let's
questions.
answer them left to right. No, I'm all about it. We just have to build it. The downfall, again, is that, everybody wants this turnkey, give me the package, I want to just be able to buy it, apply it, and go.
That's not the thing, never has been.
It will never be that thing. And nothing about what we do is ever going to be a turnkey success, There's growers that have been using our stuff for 15 years who are just now, blowing minds.
But now, wasn't that, I don't know, have you ever grown synthetically? Just like hydroponics or stuff like that?
I started with botanic.
And it was a nightmare too, right? It was not that it's a nightmare. It wasn't straightforward. But shit happened, right?
Oh yeah, well shit happens anyway. It's neither here nor. But it was way more simple to not have to think about all the pieces that we think about, and that's fine. That's the difference between getting on a track with a Yugo and a Ferrari. This is gonna be more complicated and a lot more technical, and you're gonna need special mechanics to give you a tune-up. But we're both gonna get around the track.
There's spiritual gains from that because you probably have more fun in that Yugo, but.
Until you pull up to a bar. I'm going to have far more fun in a Ferrari.
Yeah, no, I was thinking on the track, though.
I don't think
it's like you're going 1,000 miles an hour. Have you ever driven a Yugo?
Yeah, and at 40, I'm about to poop my pants.
I know, it's exciting!
40 horsepower is doing 90 going, I can go 190.
I know, that's what I'm saying, is there's more spiritual in that, but if you just want
sheer excitement... you're going to die!
Yes, that's what I'm saying!
That's not spiritual, that's literally just, I'm going to die.
The Ferrari is more spiritual in that you can refine it, because the Yugo, you can't refine that Yugo.
Because you put anything on it, the wheels fall off.
But also it's going to be a different car going around that on the second lap than it will be on the first lap, because it's...
on the second curve!
The brakes
are speed, the rubber's gone on one half. Yeah, anyway. Yes, we'll do a full alkalinity show and call it that.
Remember those old chase movies in the 70s and the car would go around the corner and the hubcap would fly off because the tire was rolled so far under that the wheel hit the ground? That's exciting. That's exciting. Hey, Bob. Okay. My tap is an extremely high pH, 9.2, and my ppm comes out at 130. Come to find out, I have quite a bit of calcium in the water. After hearing about all this alkalinity stuff, it made me wonder, could I just dechlor the water and add newts? Dechlorinate?
Yeah.
And I've done this to see what my pH would be, and amazingly it came out to 6.3 without pH adjustments. Sorry for such a long-winded question.
Yeah, well,
he knew what was going to happen, didn't he?
Yeah.
That
was all your fault.
He's covering for me. But I'd love to know what you and the beer... Well, I don't have a clue. The beer thoughts are. Thanks. So what do you think about that? Does the dechlorination have anything to do with the actual alkalinity situation?
It shouldn't. It should just be a reaction to knock the chlorine out of suspension.
Yeah, but chlorine is it acidic or alkaline? Is it... Who knows? I don't know.
But what was his numbers again?
9.2 and 130. But he
9.2 pH?
9.2 pH.
And the chlorinator took it down to 6 point what?
6.3.
Then there's,
Something's going on.
What's the dechlor? What's the product?
Well, that could be, because there's that salt stuff that does the dechlorination stuff. It's some sort of, that Microlife makes. It's some sort of chemical process thing. It's like a natural chemical reaction. I can't remember what it does, but it's...
Yeah, because chlorine should be 7.2.
Because it doesn't get rid of the chlorine, it gats it off, it turns it into something else.
Yeah, it converts it.
Yeah.
What's his alkalinity go to?
He didn't say.
But it starts at what?
He said my ppm, his ppm comes out at 130, so not alkalinity, ppm.
Okay.
He's got a 130 ppm, and he doesn't say what his ppm is after the fact, but he says he goes from 9.2 to 6.3.
That's crazy. I need to know what the dechlorinating product is so I can see the active ingredient of that and see what it is. But if you have any alkalinity or any carbonate in that 9, which you probably do, if you've got white stuff all over your mirrors, you've got calcium in the water, whatever that reaction is for whatever brand dechlorinator you're using, I'd be curious. And go get some fish tank strips. They're like $7 or $8 for a box or a little tube of them. But they'll have an alkalinity gauge on there from 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60.
Give you an idea.
Just give you an idea of where you're at for $9. It'd be worth it just to see you're starting in your post,
Uh-huh.
and then send us what your dechlorinator is so we can see what your active ingredient is and what's causing that pH drop.
What are the different ways that people dechlorinate? I mean, there's a couple.
Well, if you know it's just chlorine, it gases off, so you can just air stone it for
yeah.
24 hours and it'll be gone.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But if it's chloramine, then this will be one of the few that gets it
microbe
off.
life stuff that does it. But is there other ways of doing it, or just that one kind of reaction? I mean,
No, I mean, if it's mild too, it's, mix it with some nutrition, and a lot of the calcium, phosphorus, and potassium start locking it up as well. It just becomes a microbe food down the road.
I gotcha.
It'll kill stuff in the water as a, municipal.
Uh-huh.
So you don't drink, fecal bacteria or some crazy shit.
Well, it's not like we drop dead from drinking the water. It's probably not good for us, but
No.
it's probably better than the braiding amoebas.
Yeah, you're not drinking all the Willamette here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would need to know just a little bit more info. But I mean, as it stands, 130 parts per million, it's low.
Yeah.
You have low contaminants in your water, so I would be very much into using that water, but I'd check the alkalinity just to see what's converting at 9 to 6.3, and that may be just pure alkalinity.
Okay. Because 9.2 is pretty
high potential. Yeah, well, that's Santa Cruz water.
Oh, okay.
And so it's hard to get it down to 6.5. Yeah. So there's something in that dechlorinator I'd like to know about.
That might be interesting.
Yeah, what's the brand?
Yeah. Joshua Lohman. Should you discontinue tea days when flushing before harvest? And would flushing twice a day for a week be equal to once a day for 2 weeks?
Depends on why we're flushing. I mean, if we're flushing because we have a problem and we're trying to get all the excess ppms out, then you can flush it every other day for a week and get rid of that stuff. But for my fear of doing it that style where, I don't believe in flushing for 2 weeks because I'm not flushing anything out of the plant.
Right,
the plant's built. So
yeah.
we're trying to ripen the fruit off and to make the fruit more dense. We're trying to take the air spaces where the foliage in the flower have formed. Now we're trying to make that fill in and be more solid.
And does it have some sort of function that it kind of, by starving to death, it ripens? That's kind of how it works. It stops eating at the end of the process. Like
for ripening, you want the plant to consume itself and convert chlorophyll or that photosynthetic reaction into sucrose or sugar.
What happens in a place where, if you're at the equator, I mean, is there still seasonal plants? Does it?
No,
it just keeps going forever,
grow
right?
zones is that certain plants won't grow in our zone because we have seasons, and certain plants will grow that won't grow down there because they need seasons.
I gotcha.
So I mean, it's that's an interesting one. I personally doubling up your flush doesn't.
Well, you've only got so much water that you can put through the plant, so you can only flush it once a day, even if you're flushing it twice a day, because you can only put so much water through it. So if you do it twice, you have to do half as much water.
Yeah,
you know what
even
I mean?
then, it's still it says a lot of work.
Yeah, but I would think that better to water it once and move on than to water it all day
My fear
long.
is if you keep watering it regularly that heavy, your plant's going to want to uptake that water, which then puts a lot of hydration into the flower, which then can increase mold and risks of mildew and any type of fungal body to form. So I'd be leery on doing it. I would just I don't.
It's one of those philosophical questions.
It's
like, what's the sound of one hand clapping?
That.
If a tree falls in the woods but no one hears it, does it make any sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the other one? How do you catch a fish with a gourd? Is that one of them?
Cut a hole. Yeah. I don't think we answered that guy's question.
I said to Steve, if the universe goes on forever, it feels like it has to stop. But if it does stop, there's something beyond that. What's that? And he said it's Mugba or something like that. He just said some gibberish word, just like he was telling an idiot the truth.
Yeah, prove him wrong.
I like that. All right. Gary L. I don't have a compost pile. That must be a
compost.
I know, but he must have been doing this on his phone. You think a lot of people watch the show on their phone?
I don't know.
Question. I do have I don't have a compost pile. I do have Photo Plus, Zeus, worm castings, and bat guano, as well as soil amendments such as alfalfa meal, etc. Can I make a compatible tea that is comparable to compost tea? P.S. Love you. See you tomorrow. Well, wouldn't you just do the Photo Plus? I mean,
I wouldn't. Because your compost pile, you're not putting alfalfa and back guano and all those things into your compost.
He's telling everything he has. Just not knowing what's going on. But yeah.
And really, to make compost tea, I would never use my personal compost.
Ooh, yeah, no.
Ever. So it's good you don't use your compost that you don't have for your compost tea, because
that's the way to not do it.
You don't know what pets are there. You don't know what kind of wild animals peed or pooed in there. There's all these different aspects that if you're not turning your compost regularly, you're not...
It could be a rat's nest inside there.
E. coli, botulism. Yeah. I mean, there's some real world problems that live in compost if it's not composted correctly. That's what's so great about taking compost and then putting it in the earth.
Yeah.
Is then the earth kind of balances out anything that's positive or negative and creates more of an ecosystem versus taking whatever's here, putting it and then concentrating it by breeding whatever these little bits are and then creating a huge problem. So if you had E. coli and a little bit of compost and your pump shuts off for an hour and the anaerobic bacteria build up and E. coli take over and start eating all your beneficials, and then you foliar feed that onto a plant that you're going to consume, you could easily give and that was the biggest issue in Seattle Parks and Recreation, Portland Parks and Recreation. They didn't want compost tea sprayed in the parks with the fear of all of these pathogens and diseases and viruses people could get from a bad compost source. So when it comes to compost, I'm worm castings. It's just composted earth because worms digest it and you have beneficial bacteria from that or beneficial fungi, or a trusted compost bag source like Malibu or Alaskan Humus or one of these that comes from a company that is very conscious how they make compost.
Right.
We don't use compost in anything we do anymore because we've lost all the sources of people being able to continually windrow them, turning them over twice or 3 times a week, making sure the moisture content's correct, making sure the bacteria levels are all balanced. Most people just put a big pile in the corner of their yard, let it go anaerobic, turn it once a year, add crap on top of it, and then the wildlife eat it all down.
What do you think about the people that use buckets like Jake? He throws his stuff in a bucket and just leaves it basically.
Yeah, it's
for a year or two. I mean, for a long time.
That will compost in time, but if you're trying to use that fresh or on a cycle, it's not a great way to compost.
Yeah, sure.
Now, grain-fed earthworms, they do bucket composting with their castings, but it's so he has 1.5 cubic foot batches, so they're very more consistent. They're very much they're easier to control than a giant worm bed.
Sure.
And so there's different ways of doing it all, but I would never use home compost.
So I assume that a lot of people are doing indoor because of what we're doing.
Oh, sure.
And it's very different with indoor than outdoor. I mean, would you use compost in an outdoor grow? I mean, if you're growing trees,
if you've done good at composting and you know what you're doing, because composting isn't just, I have too much food and I put it out in a pile.
Yeah.
It's a balance between brown and green manures. It's a difference of wet to dry. It's lasagna layering. It's a very huge thing.
If you're not going to be a player in that game, then you shouldn't do it at all.
No, just buy good planting mixes and good compost.
So if you were outside as opposed to inside, you might just get you a big bag of Malibu compost and sprinkle that over the top, or
if I know a guy that has a 30-year rabbit farm, I'll go use rabbit compost.
I got you.
Someplace that has compost that's done. I don't have compost that's done.
But if you were indoors, wouldn't you probably just use some liquid microbials, or would you maybe tops?
Well, even outdoor, anywhere I'm making compost tea.
Yeah.
Where I'm taking a medium and I'm multiplying the organisms, I'm using a controlled, tested, secure compost source. Whether it's worm castings, Malibu,
Okay. So
the best compost tea would really be grain-fed earthworm castings.
Yeah.
Because it's worm compost.
Yeah.
You take that and you use that as your... it's like yeast. You start with 1 cup of castings or compost and you put it in 15 gallons. You're breeding these out to make 1 million of these out of 1,000 of these.
Okay.
So
what would you do? You do some worm castings and some molasses or something, or what would you?
Yeah, a food source for the bacteria and
the 2-ingredient tea, or would you put some?
I personally like a compost. Worm castings are going to be bacteria heavy, and compost will have more fungal diversity. So I like 1-to-1. So little castings, little compost, put them in a pantyhose, and then give it 24 to 48 hours with some molasses.
And Malibu is the company we know of that we
honestly over Malibu I'd go with grain-fed.
Okay, so they're worm castings, but that's
but so there's castings and then there's worm compost, and the reality is I don't even think he calls his stuff castings anymore because it's he shakes a lot of the castings in there, but you are getting casings from the worms, you're getting eggs from the worms, you're getting debris from the compost, so it's more of a compost.
So you're calling
pure
that
casting. Wonder worm is
Great.
Castings.
Yeah.
What's that black worm, that whatever they sell at OCG? That's like casting. And all they do is they take all the shakings from the clay and the shit and all the stuff that comes out of these beds, they come through shell or little screens, and what's left is cosmetically a really pretty little poop. And what that really is a lot of clay, a lot of digestive material that they just put over a screen like a Play-Doh, shear it off so it looks like little poop, and in reality it's just all the material that came through the worm, whether it's poop or clay. So he's not selling you that. He's selling you the bed, the babies, the whole package is in one of his bags, so you're getting all the diversity that would be in compost to digest down organic matter. So
Malibu is a big field full of rows that they're turning over all the time.
Yeah.
He has a controlled environment and some buckets and stuff. That's grain-fed worm castings.
Yeah. His will be far more diverse. Theirs will be diverse for whatever was the day, the food source of the cow, the dairy manure they use. Their compost could change literally from Oregon to Washington to New York.
He's doing it on a more, not scientific level, but in a more controlled environment.
Way more controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's one location, he's one spot, he's one food source, so the consistency, the guys on the East Coast brewing with Malibu tea, if they lab that versus ours, it'd be a different diversity and, spectrum of life. Where if you use the grain-fed more frequently, you would see way more consistency on the diversity level. I think his stuff is far more diverse, and it's just, again, it's because he's operating in a small space versus 4 or 5 states and 20
outside
dairy manures. So it's like, dairy farms alone, you can just from one dairy farm to the next, you can get diversity right there.
Sure.
Totally different products. So I don't know.
I got you. Okay.
I would use compost tea indoors if you don't have a compost source you trust or don't want to set up the whole thing. That's why Easy Teas came out. That's why Green Grows exist. That's why Photo Plus and Microbial Life liquids are there. Is that you don't have to brew them. You can still get all the microbes through these bottles.
So given this, Photo Plus, Zeus worm castings, bat guano, blah, blah, blah.
Photo Plus.
You would just do the Photo Plus in a bucket of water and pour it on the plants? Or would you
there's your normal dilution rates.
Yeah.
1
You're good to go.
per gallon and water it in.
Okay. Cry Havoc. Hipster guy, I guess.
All right.
In regards to feed tea, feed flush, what would you recommend as a basic timeline to do this? I realize that every grower and every grow is different, but just looking at a rough average, I typically feed once a week and inoculate with bacteria later the same week. I'm trying to dial in my nutrient line and I'm about to run some nectar products in my lineup. So if you're just running some nectar products in your lineup, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, do what you do and add our stuff and see if you like the difference.
But if you're going to do just nectar stuff, you can kind of decide for yourself.
Well, and feed flush is just what a giant chunk of our growers do, and then there's this whole other chunk that's like I feed, I water, water, or I feed and I do a dry minute.
Well, and wouldn't you say this is more of a situation when you're doing one every day or every other day kind of situation, whereas if you were doing every week or something with your feedings, that you might tea more often?
Well, yeah, that means you're in giant pots of soil, you're overwatering at the get-go, so you can't water enough. I still try to get at least 3 or... if I'm not giving them 3 hydrations a week, then I feel like I've overwatered.
Well, but I think some people may be doing a feed once a week and they're doing just water a couple times a week or something.
Yeah, I go back to the human body.
Yeah.
I don't eat breakfast on Monday and then eat dinner on Thursday because there's a big chunk of time in between that I still need to build cells, I need to grow, I need to be healthy.
Sure.
So I never actually give them water. Ever. It's always bone meal or Demeters or some form of calcium always goes in the water source.
This isn't a house plant where you're growing something here, you want to get a product out of it.
And even a tomato, I want produce.
Sure,
I want to be done, I want volume, I want yield. So if you put in, better chance you're getting out. If you don't put in, you're not going to get out. So with that, what I tell people on that level is give them less volume more frequently. If you can only water them twice a week because that's how your watering style is, bring back your volume. Instead of giving them 3 gallons to a 5-gallon pot, give them a gallon. See how many more times you can get in. If you can teach this plant to develop roots over vegetation, you can water and feed them far more frequently and far more volume down the road if you condition them to take that. But if you start out of the gate, first 3 weeks of veg, you're hammering them with 3 gallons of water in a 5-gallon pot, they get lazy and they just stop drinking, so then it becomes less and less likely that you can feed them more often. So learn to feed a less volume as you're transitioning, less more frequently versus more less frequently. Now, if you just want to not grow, just, I want to make this super easy, then it's, overwater them at the get-go. They only need watering once a week, but your yield's going to suffer, your quality will suffer, your terpene profiles, all the things that make us unique are because we're dialing in these feeds. And if you can't dial in the feeds because you can feed them 16 times in a cycle, because you have, 10 weeks of flour and 6 weeks of veg, that's not enough food. Yeah. It's not enough food to do, oh my gosh, look what I grew.
Yeah.
It'll grow something, it'll finish something, but it's going to be, that's great.
Okay. Good answer. D'Amelio. D'Amelio. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. D'Amelio. Or that's Italian. I'm going to move on. When doing a lot of topping and low-stress training, is it normal for plants to get a crazy appetite, like 2 to 3 times more than what the feed chart lists? I feel like I'm using so much nutrients and my slurries are still showing hungry plants.
Yeah, well, that's pretty common. So if you prune a plant, it triggers their growth response in defense, so they start growing, so they demand more to do so.
So I've got these hanging baskets at home, and sometimes I forget to water them. They kind of die off, and I go in there and I clip a bunch of stuff, and they take off.
Yeah.
That's they're not doing that on their own. They're eating more out of the soil and everything.
Well, and they're doing it on their own because it's a survival response.
Yeah. But they're trying to get more nutrients to build that out of the thing, so they are going to get hungrier. Right?
Yeah.
When you
if
do
they
that.
start absorbing more, then they're going to need more. But pruning and across the board, root pruning and top pruning, like bonsai work.
Yeah.
The way you get new growth and get to shaping a bonsai tree, you pull it out, you cut the same amount of roots off as you do the top, and it stimulates a ton of growth.
Yeah.
And so when you see these guys doing these heavy LST trainings, low stress training, it's amazing to watch their ability to feed during that time because the plant is stressed and they're being tortured and being pruned, so their first response is we have to live, and they just keep growing, putting out new shoots. To do all that, you have to be balancing their food cycle. And so a lot of people are just like, wow, if I feed them a lot more, then they produce a lot. They develop faster, they create that screen a lot quicker, and then they go back to normal feeding when they're done pruning. But pruning will stimulate
Okay, so, but it's not like a situation where you get done with this where you still got to feed them all the way through, where they're going to be hungry all the way through.
Depends on the genetics, the alkalinity, and the health of the plant. Because, that's the downfall of nectar is that if you kind of create this plant and it's, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's healthy and voracious and it wants to eat.
It's like the metabolism, right?
You
create
ramped up its metabolism, and so now it has
like
to.
You and I. If we had to go running right now, we'd be screwed.
Yeah.
But if we trained to run, we'd be like, no problem, I can do 20 miles.
Yeah.
But then you stop for a month, and then you go run again.
Different. Yeah.
Once you start doing this to your plant, you give it, and then you want to do this because you don't want to afford it anymore. Well, you're taking the athlete, and then you're putting the shackles on them and saying, okay, well, don't run, really. I wanted you to run. We're kidding.
Yeah.
Going, now sit here and get fat like us.
Yeah, it's all good. No, they're not going to. It's not going to work. It's going to be unhealthy.
Unfortunately, when you start doing that, just be prepared that you may have to notch up your feed rates and then kind of maintain them and keep your slurries in check because often when you have to ramp up like that, they don't ever want to come back to a lesser feed. They kind of want to be like, keep us here or keep going, keep accelerating.
Okay. Cry Havoc again. He's got a bunch of questions today. What is the micronal limestone you sent to the East Coast person? I am in need of this as well for the same reason, and I'm having little luck. I can't keep my pH balanced in my soil. So the micronal limestone is...
Well, that was for a cure. Like, oh my gosh, my soil is 5.1 and I can't get it up no matter what I do. So the microna is calpril, but that fine 400 mesh dust.
Like flour.
It's flour, it's soluble, it fixes pH.
Okay.
Has no longevity for alkalinity because it's so much more soluble that
it'll physically wash out.
Exactly.
You can't keep it
go away.
Yeah, okay.
So really for that individual, I highly recommend, and right now because we don't have this FERT pack out, we'll discuss it. I know there's a question coming up that will just be a redundant answer. But in the meantime, since ours isn't out there yet, if you go find anything that's just called calcium carbonate, pelleted calcium carbonate, if you can't find it in the big ag stores, Down to Earth makes a garden lime.
Okay.
They also make dolomitic lime and gypsum lime. Do not get those two.
Okay.
But the carbonated or calcium carbonate limestone is the one you want. Down to Earth sells it. You can get it at any ag store. It'll just be calcium carbonate.
So, I mean, you're talking the feed and seed, not the
I'm talking
garden store.
Or even a garden. Most garden stores will have it, but the further you get into ag, like feed stores and big ag stores, they all have the same exact product. It just gets way cheaper as you go ag because limestone is cheap.
Okay. So OCG has the Down to Earth stuff on there.
We have CalPro.
Yeah. Oh.
So on the West Coast, we have CalPro.
Yeah.
And I would promote that because all Down to Earth does is buys CalPro and puts it in a box and calls it garden lime.
Well, so that's a box like this. Is that enough?
Well, 1 cup per, like for an instance here where you're at like below 6, 1 cup per 10 gallons should buy you at least 4 to 7 weeks of pH correction.
Okay.
So like with pig, we're running into the 5.2s. We found that putting 1 cup at second week of bloom kept him 6.4 all the way to the end.
Oh, wow.
And without having a whole bunch of overcorrections here and there.
Oh, because that's a lot of it too, is you're trying to fix this.
You go dolomite lime, it's like, bam, pH is up. But so is my magnesium. So my magnesium spikes and then my magnesium crashes. And then the pH crashes behind it and then you have to rebuild the calcite back in because you've dissolved it all because they're all reacting to the water.
And that's if you know what's going on. If you're just starting out, you might not
that's
know.
That's why just don't mess with dolomitic. I mean, dolomite lime works great for magnesium issues. Gypsum lime works great as a sulfur issue with calcium.
Sure.
But we don't want those two to be enhanced right now. We're just trying to fix pH and alkalinity, and calcium carbonate will do that. And that's just limestone.
Okay.
No additives. Pelleted is nice because they use basically Persephone's potion as a binder. So the same lignin that we use as Persephone, they use as a molasses binder to make the pelleted limestones.
So, but this micronal limestone is like a quickety-quick solution.
Yeah, like if I was to use that, it's because your pH is starting at 5 and it's traditionally staying at 5 no matter what you do, then that will jack it up. So you put like, I'd say, in a cup of CalPro, I'd put in a tablespoon of Microna.
Oh, wow.
So I jack my pH up, but then the CalPro will maintain it for the rest of the cycle.
Okay.
And if I had a mag issue in my plant at the same time, I'd do the same thing. A tablespoon of dolomite lime into a cup of CalPro or limestone. The dolomitic lime will jack the pH up. It will fix the magnesium issue, and then the calcite will come in, or the carbonate will come in behind and fix the alkalinity.
It's kind of like those little capsules, the time release capsules, where you get it all day long.
Just not laser cut.
Yeah.
Like Tylenol. They're laser cut.
Laser cut. Okay. Cry havoc again.
What?
Yeah.
Man.
Question for you. I'm using TH6 soil. TH6? Don't know.
Sounds like THC with the hoop on it.
That's a great brand name. TH6.
It sure is clever for the industry.
Yeah, we got a clever industry.
Yeah,
Branding.
Did he get it from a store called Northern Lights or the Grow Shop? There's only a few of those.
Oh, jeez.
What's the name of your store? The Grow Shop. Really?
Soil and cocoa coir. Oh. I'm just thinking about something I can't tell you.
That's another show.
That's not the Grateful Dead. Oh. This guy's like, no one likes the Grateful Dead's music. It was just an acid delivery system when they were touring.
Pretty close.
Yep. I'm using TH6 soil and cocoa coir. As a medium indoors, and have used distilled water have to use distilled water where I live. The pH of the distilled water out of the bottle is 5.9. I am about to run a modified Greek regimen for the first time. I have yet to do a slurry test on the soil, but I'm concerned that the IF soil's pH is too low. I will probably it was capitalized. So that if the soil's pH is too low, I will probably end up using an excessive amount of Olympus Up, or may experience pH drifts in the soil. Is this something I should be worried about? I am using Gaia regularly. Will this drop my soil pH over time? Should I look for limestone options? I think he worries too much.
He just wants to make sure he's building the right foundation.
Well,
and I don't know anything about TH6 soil, so I need to know the slurry of that or the makeup or a label for that.
Well, he probably wants to have all the tools there so that he doesn't have to order something that's 3 weeks delayed.
The good news, our answer, just the last answer, is exact. So rewind and then play that last 3 minutes over and over, because I just gave the options of dolomitic, gypsum, and calpril, or calcium carbonate. For that, see what your pH starts at, fix the pH, and then add. You're gonna need limestone no matter what. You're using distilled water at 5.
You're gonna have to have.
Yeah, you're gonna, no matter if that pH comes out at 8.3 in the bag of soil. By flower time, it's gonna be below 6 because you have naked water. Your water will strip that pH out of that soil over time. So get a slurry of the soil. Do yourself a favor too. About 3 weeks into your veg cycle, do a slurry on that soil to see if their starting charge was a microna flour, which is gone, or did they build in a limestone and oyster shell that's literally going to last longer. And so I would do a test right now. I'd do a test in 3 weeks, and then I'd just go out and find that garden lime that's a calcium carbonate that will definitely prevent that from being a bigger issue for you.
Okay, now he mentioned the Gaia, and we've mentioned before about using Gaia to drop the pH, but that's in an instance by itself, not when it's mixed in with your regular feed mix of your Greek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a...
No, it's just like, I need to come down a quarter of a point.
Yeah, and so you go to some Gaia.
It won't hurt anything.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to avoid battling pH swings or lockouts. So, I just... Big picture, pH swings. What do you think, if you're seeing your pH, do you see that where it goes up and down, or do you see it's trending one way or the other, right?
It trends, yeah, because there's a reason why it's going one direction, and that's, you just have to fix the element that's making it go down. So if you're using distilled or RO water, you have no limestone built into your soil, and even if you have to feed at a 6.5 pH with Olympus up, there's not enough everything to keep that pH balanced.
Okay.
You're still, pig in our number 4, running 6.6 in pH with Olympus up, having to put in, god awful amounts, still runs that soil down into the mid 5s with rainwater because it's stripping every bit of pH correction we've added to the mix. And even if we're trying to band-aid it, because that's the biggest problem right now, people that have the biggest issues with our nutrient line have water sources that are stripping the calcium out of the soil. So it doesn't matter what we add into the liquids. If the foundation's cracked, it's getting away from us. We need to build that soil back up. And that's where, the limestone comes in, is that we can build any potting soil, we can build it all back with limestone to help fix issues from people that have to use filtered RO or rainwater.
Okay.
So there is no swings. The swings are because you're feeding it one day at 7, one day at 6, one day at 6.8, one day at 5. Don't create your swing, but if your soil will trend one way, you just build it back up. Now, if you build it up with dolomite, you're going to swing it because it's going to jack it and drop it, because every time you apply it, it's instant pH, but it is soluble, so it goes away.
Oh, that's your swing, because it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But if you build it with something that's not going to just dissolve and disappear, like carbonate, limestone, it's not going to go up and down, up and down. It's going to trend back up. It's going to get to a stasis point because the pH of your water is only going to dissolve so much of the limestone. It just keeps you at that 6.3, 6.4 way more frequently.
Are distilled water and reverse osmosis water, RO water, are they going to have the same characteristics if I use those?
As far as what we're seeing with pH, calcium, and alkalinity, same characteristics. As far as the water structure itself, now completely different.
Completely different, but the for our purposes of growing an alkalinity, both of those will react the same.
In the jug on the plant, they'll react the same.
Okay.
But as far as their structure, how they're made up, and what's in it, totally different.
If I'm using one of those two waters, am I easier to fix my soil than my water, or am I trying to fix both? Or
depends on again. Are you a giant commercial farm, or are you a four plant? If you're a 4 plant guy, it's cheaper to fix the soil because you go out and buy 4 cups of limestone for almost nothing. If you got 1,000 plants,
becomes the work of actually doing it.
Yeah, the labor of putting 1,000 cups of limestone out on 10,000 or on 1,000 10-gallon pots. Yeah, that's a 2-day project.
So either way works, but at scale it's better in the water, and in small scale it's better in the soil.
Yeah, when you're at scale, any farm will tell you, you don't try to fix all the individual plants, you fix the damn
Globally.
center pivot.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get a half an acre on the center pivot that's garbage and disease, but you know what? That's called loss. I mean, if you look at some of these hemp fields today, you're like, that's cute. I mean, these rows look awesome, and then these rows look like rabbits ate them because they're this big versus this big. I mean, there's
It's just what it is.
Yeah,
you can only do global changes. You can't work on the single plant.
No, the love is gone at 50 acre hemp.
Keith McGreeny. We've had questions from Keith before. I found some very fine ground calcium carbonate on Amazon. Can I just top dress it in? And if so, how much per gallon?
That's a hard question. What's your pH to begin with, really? Because if you're at 6.4, why would you add it? Or if you're at 5.2, you might need to add more than if you're at 5.8.
Well, let's just so very fine is a who knows how fine it actually is. So I mean, this
flour or is it sand fine?
So I guess how do you judge?
Well, like I was saying before, the Microna is a very, very, very fine flour calcium carbonate, and we use that for pH correction, but not for alkalinity. So it corrects it, but it doesn't hold because it's so fine it will wash out.
So just for us, would you say that calcium carbonate's about like sugar and the Microna's like salt, or I mean like flour? I mean, is it?
Yeah, because you don't. I mean, well.
So when you see some sugar like that kind of, I mean, it's like
calcite.
Yeah, and
it says calcium carbonate.
So it's
like
salt.
It's like salt. It's more like salt than sugar.
Yeah. Now they take this and they roll it in lignin, so now it has a carbon attached to the calcite. So then bacteria want to eat it, or acid will dissolve it.
So if it's like flour, it's going to work fast and go away, and if it's like salt, it's going to last a while.
Well, if you take a sieve, put a tablespoon of the flour in there and add water, it goes away.
Yeah.
Put that in there and water, it's still there.
Yeah.
So it's just how it gets dissolved.
I gotcha. Okay.
So it's really fast, the fine flour. It will fix a problem. It'll take 2 to 5 days, but then in 5 to 10 days, you better be checking again because it may have gone through and gotten past the solution, and now you're back up and down. You're up and down.
I got you.
So ideally, pelleted limestone is your best for long-term fixes or building and structuring a soil, and for a rapid fix, better to do the flour. But you better have a backing to, you fixed it, now build that foundation so it has something to back it.
I'm growing 3 or 4 plants in good soil. Is it always better to put some limestone in there, or are there situations where my water's going to lower that?
No, because if you have a 9.0 pH in your water, you're going the other direction. How do I get my soil pH down? We have not as many, but there is a large group of people that have issues because their membranes, they don't realize, calcium carbonate's white.
Yeah.
So all their filters, all their systems are white. They all look, brilliantly clean. Yeah. But their water coming out of the exit side of an RO is like 8.7. That's putting pH and alkalinity into the soils that actually will start building up and then put you out of range on the high end of the pH.
Okay.
So, no, that's not necessarily just a given.
So, if you've got reasonably good water and you're buying bags of soil that are usually in the 5, 6, 7 range, I would think.
Stop buying that garbage and move on and learn. Because if you're buying soil regularly at 5, 7, call the company and ask them what their science is.
Now, I got some potting soil for doing the house plants. The missus did, and at some place, and it looks like it's bark and stuff. I mean,
it's garbage.
If there's wood, it's no good. If you can see wood in there,
other than a little nursery grower growing native plants for a native nursery, there's no need to have filler in your potting mix. You're growing a high-end crop. There's nothing wrong with wood chunks in your potting soil if you're doing an outdoor planting that you want diversity with fungal bodies.
Sure.
But also remember, as that wood's breaking down, it needs things like nitrogen and phosphorus to actually use that as an energy to break down the wood back into a soil. So if you start with a lot of filler in your potting mix, all the nutrition you think was built in there is used to actually break down the matter because it's raw wood. So if you're not using raw wood to start, it's not a problem.
So you have to get some sort of good soil.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
And the downfall too with wood is that the tannins become acidic. So as they're digesting and breaking down through fungal mass, fungus is digesting into an acid, the bacteria is pooping out an acid, and wood is acidically driven. As it's being broken down, leaches out acid. So your ability to drop your pH more quick happens with a wood.
So if there's no grow store in my town, grocery store and I'm going to the Home Depot or the garden center, there is no soil in there I can use really that's going to be good, right? Because it's all...
No, you just look at the ingredients. If it says forest byproducts, avoid that one. Mm-hmm. If it says peat moss, cocoa fiber, and foods, there you go.
And those soils do exist even at the...
Black Gold.
Okay.
I mean, if Black Gold is a nationwide company, they make a peat moss-based soil. Sunshine No. 4, Pro Mix. These are all ones you're going to find them. Or find peat moss, worm castings, and cocoa fiber. Blend them together with a little perlite or pumice, and you got a good base soil. What you add in nutritional-wise is totally, up to us, the manufacturer, or to other growers or other manufacturers. So many growers don't want to buy anybody's potting mix because they don't know the levels, the amount of foods that people put in, and they want to control that aspect. So they buy all those components that make up potting soil, which is cocoa, peat moss, a good compost some people like, or a worm casting, and then perlite and pumice for drainage.
So if I'm doing my perlite and pumice with this, do I is there just a set thing for that, or do I kind of base that on how often I want to water, how hard I want to push?
Yeah, and just I'd say most mixes you're going to see out there are like a 20 to 25% perlite to pumice, or perlite and to pumice? Mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, drainage to medium. So kind of start with that. Start with a 25% mix and then add more for drainage.
And could I use all perlite or all pumice if I'm just making it myself? Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's just
we would use all pumice if we could, because it's more mineral content. There's more pores. It's chunkier for the sake of it can house more organisms, but the weight of it's too much. So we'd only be able to put 50 bags on a pallet.
You're shipping a bag of rocks.
Pretty much.
And it's not about the bag is heavy. It's that you can only put so many on a pallet without it being too heavy for the truck.
It's 2,500.
Yeah, it goes over the limit.
Yeah. So right now, 60 bags reaches that limit. With just pumice, it'd be like 45. And so when freight becomes a real part of the cost, you can't do pumice.
But if you're making your own, you'd probably just use the pumice.
If you have it, if I'm in Iowa, probably not, because good luck finding pumice in Iowa.
Oh, because it's
an entire mountain range here. They just scrape it off the ground and bring it to us at cheap per yard. It's cheaper than perlite and no energy.
Spray it on the roads when it snows.
Truly, the whole mountains here. And they don't have to use, there's a lot of natural gas being used to make perlite. And that was one of our biggest issues with perlite is it's, perlite's just river rock, they popcorn.
Oh.
And so they're taking tiny little stones and creating so much heat they pop into a freaking puff. That's a lot of energy. Yeah. And so it's like, man, that's,
It's hard to
go into the Green New Deal making perlite, because that ain't gonna be around. You better learn about pumice real fast, because this shit ain't gonna be around in 2035.
With $300 bag of soil.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, is that it?
That was that one. We'll do another viewer question tomorrow.
It's exciting.
Well, it won't be aired tomorrow, but we got that other one.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
All right.
That's that.
That was a long one of nothingness.
I think it was okay. The OCGFAM show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM show. See you tomorrow.